The challenges of how you take over a state so fractured and sclerotic and disunified over the course of the civil war is a monumental task. It's one that will partly be decided by geography, because and in fact that's why the rebels are in Damascus and are kind of in quasi control of the state, is because they conquered the geography. They got down this western corridor through Homs and Hama and to Damascus, and that's how you control the Syrian state. But you have a lot of other actors now. Some of them have kind of fled the scene because they were backers of the old regime. So Russia and Iran have pretty quickly sped out of sight. Israel's come in very strongly obviously is seeking to essentially demilitarize Syria and make sure that it has no military capacity left. So it's going after the conventional military capabilities that Syria had, and actually the suspected chemical capacities it had. You have Turkey that is very anxious to contain what it sees as a threat from a Kurdish proto-state in the north of Syria. And then, of course, you have the remnants of Islamic State, and the very bitter recollections of the brutality that took place when they were in charge of a great swathe of Syria and across the border into Iraq, when they had that caliphate. And were able to exploit that ungoverned space. So I think all of those are concerns when we look at what comes next for Syria. It is an absolutely transformational moment. Now, primarily because of what it means for Iran. I think it's probably the most transformational moment that we've seen since 2003, because at that point, the Americans, when they invaded Iraq, unwittingly or failing to listen to the right people, they actually removed this bulwark against Iran, and that allowed Iran's rise within the region. And it, that had gone, and so Iran was able to extend its influence to a degree it never had before. The loss of Iran's client regime, the Assad regime in Syria, is an enormous blow, and it's partly again about this geography. So Syria was it was the place where Iran would hand over missiles to Hezbollah, who could take them into Lebanon and use them against Israel, or use the threat of them against Israel. So in that sense, that option, that proxy that Iran has had in the form of Hezbollah, the link between it, the geographical link between them is broken now. Now that could go two ways. That could see the demise of Iranian influence throughout the whole region. It could see Iran think, well, we've got no option but to get a nuclear bomb. I mean, when people are backed into a corner, they can get desperate and they can lash out. And, that is one of the ways they could read this. Thank you, Kate.
I mean, Turkey is widely being perceived as taking this opportunity right now to push its agenda to try and end the autonomous Kurdish region in the north, and is against. It's backing the forces that are opposed by the US-supported forces, Kurdish forces. What will be the consequences if the US does pull out? In terms of, at the moment, it is being reported in some quarters that they're actually having a deterrence effect, the US presence there. What will happen if they do leave?
I mean, essentially, Turkey will have free reign to do whatever it wants. The Kurds will have no. There's a famous Kurdish proverb that the Kurds have no friends but the mountains, and they we'll have no friends but the mountains if the Americans leave.
Mm. Which again, presumably in itself, that creates even more. I mean, it looks like the situation when you outline all these complexities, it looks pretty bleak for the prospect of HTS actually getting a grip on Syria.
I think there is a possibility that they could get a grip on this kind of western corridor of Syria. I think that the problems really are in the north. Uh, Turkey even has an eye on Aleppo. Everyone always has an eye on Aleppo. It's this, this huge commercial center. Damascus is the political center. Aleppo is the commercial center, and Turkey's always wanted to protect its interests around there. The fighting I think we're seeing at the moment is centered on Manbij. That I think will determine what goes down between the essentially the Turkish proxy. Yeah, the Syrian proxies for the Turks that are there. I mean, the Turks may even put more of their troops in, but they also have these Syrian proxies working for them against the Kurds. So I think that that's where the main issues will be. My guess is that if ISIS were going to seek to exploit this situation and had the ability to do so, it's going to be more over in that less populated eastern part of Syria where they've been before. And I thought it was interesting that the HTS made a big show of the fact that they got hold of Deir Azor, which is on the Iraq border. And I think that that was probably a wise strategic move to show that they weren't just confined to one area of Syria, and which has been really the issue with Syria all along. It's kind of a prisoner of its own geography, because it just has lots of areas of ingress from people who wish to come in and pursue their own interests, and not very many areas in which to defend itself from those.
And back to your article about the threat posed by IS, and the US is responding by bombing raids in central Syria. Israel's conducting its own airstrikes on military capabilities that it thinks could fall into the hands of jihadists, including the chemical weapon components. I mean, that alone won't be enough, will it? What else needs to be done? And do you think how great do you think the threat is?
I think anyone who has a crystal ball on what's going to happen in Syria, I would be very distrustful of. Post-conflict situations, and we're not even post-conflict. It's still we're just in a new phase of this conflict. They're very difficult to predict. I think one of the problems about things like what the Israelis are doing makes complete sense in terms of, we've seen this before with ISIS taking control of equipment ISIS were riding around in American donated Humvees and armored vehicles and stuff in Iraq that they'd taken from troops there. So there is a wisdom in trying to take out kit that might fall into their hands. I think the problem with going after ISIS is that to revive a phrase that Donald Rumsfeld used about Afghanistan in 2001, it's not a target-rich environment. There's not, there's not a caliphate anymore. This is a mobile force, and it's amorphous, and it's not easy just to hit from the air. And it's this problem of never wanting to put boots on the ground and trying to do things from the air when actually you may be dealing with an insurgency that is really quite difficult to deal with from that height.
You've been watching Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. If you'd like to be the first to get exclusive content, you can sign up for membership with the link below. You can also listen to Times Radio for the latest news or read it on thetimes.com. My thanks to our producer today, Louis Sykes, and to you for watching. Bye for now.